Hi, welcome to Racehouse with me, Jolie.
Me, Darren Reeves.
Hola, it's the Mexican Grand Prix. This is an amazing race because it just looks so vibrant and fun. The track is crazy. You've got the circuit going through a stadium. You know, you've got amazing entertainment everywhere. The sun is shining, and it's coming into the home straight for the end of the season. I think we've got 4 races left now, and it's always a party atmosphere over in Mexico, Darren.
Well, you know, I got to say, every time I think of Mexico, I think of is it the Day of the Dead or what they call it? You know, the
Yeah,
beginning of that James Bond movie in Mexico City with all the
Spectre.
skeletons everywhere.
Mm.
That's it. You got it. For me, this is what it reminds me of. And it's so exciting. We've just had the most exciting American Grand Prix. This is totally different, but just across the border, you know? And the stadium section is a one-off, you know? We've got this race because of Perez and the success of him getting the Red Bull drive a few seasons ago, and they're so excited about it, bringing it back because I think it was back in the 80s when they originally had it. So it's the Autodromo James Rodriguez, if I can say it with my terrible Spanish attempt there.
They might rename it
so,
the Perez Stadium one day. You never know.
well, listen, he's got the car to win it, and oh, Joe, there it is.
Should I keep that in or should I edit that?
Yes, mate, it's
Well,
fine. Listen,
can you
we're
say
all
bless me
human.
at least?
Oh, bless you, Joe. Bless you, Joe.
Thank you. I'm getting tissues while you talk about Mexico.
That's hilarious. So can Perez win his home race? We know from Nigel Mansell's days that he always said that the crowd gave him a second in hand, you know, on everybody else. Can the Mexican crowd do that for Perez? I'd like to see him have a good weekend because we saw such a great start to the season for him, you know, and it was something like 5 podiums in the first 5 or 6 races. Well, he's not had that in the last 12 or
No.
13. We all know it's fallen off a cliff. There's still rumours going around. Is Perez going to announce his retirement? He's got the drive for 2024. I don't know why he would, because he's going to come second in the championship, probably. You know,
Well,
he's got
well.
the yeah. You know, he's got the car to do it. He's got everything, but confidence and motivation and momentum are huge in any professional sport, but this one especially. He
Well,
doesn't have any of those right now going for him.
I was thinking maybe it's a hunger issue. We've talked about that before. Certainly, if we feel that drivers have maybe privileged circumstances, we talked about Stroll a lot and different people. But I actually read this week. I didn't know this, but Sergio Perez is actually the most backed driver, and I didn't realize this.
Yeah.
I thought it was Lance Stroll who was, but Sergio Perez is actually been supported and sponsored all of his professional, karting and racing life by Carlos Slim, who is one of the world's top billionaires.
Right.
He's a Mexican billionaire and responsible for a lot of massive industry. And he actually has been sponsoring Sergio Perez throughout his whole career. So, is there a link there? Well, we saw the first part of the season. He came out gunning for the championship. We thought, oh my god, he could win the championship this year. This could be it. But it's faltered and it hasn't worked. And all sorts of reasons. If you look at the driver standings, currently as to date, he's on 240 points. Hamilton is behind at 201. Obviously, disappointing. His points were disqualified from the last race because of the plank issue, which we'll talk about. But I think Hamilton could really overtake him. I think there's a good chance Hamilton could become second because this Mercedes is really, really far in. So Perez needs to do well. He needs to concentrate. I mean, we'll talk about track limits as well. He needs to be careful about that because in the last race, it was noted after the race that there's footage of him actually going over the track limits beyond the white lines multiple times, especially at turn 6. And others were doing it too because everyone pushes, as far as they can go. It's a
Oh
precision
yeah.
sport. It's all about that extra little bit that you can get and that compounds and adds and accumulates into, potentially a win. but he was really over a lot. So he's going to have to make sure that he does well. It's his home race as well. They're all going to be cheering for him. You know, you don't want to have a big upset at your home race. So I think he needs to be careful and really focus on this drive. Forget about all the noise. I can't see him retiring at this race. But yeah, he needs to perform better. You know, and look at Max; is just miles and miles ahead.
It's confidence, Joe. It's confidence all the way. There's no doubt that Perez has been a good F1 driver over his career. To get the win in that Force India or Racing Point, I think it was, wasn't it, in Bahrain? You know, to then, which really earned him the Red Bull drive. You know, he's been a good guy. He's a nice guy. Is he too nice? I don't know. But this backing from what I thought was the Mexican government. So Carlos Slim, for me, Joe, you're teaching me something today. So this is good. You know, how long, 20 years probably, let's say he's been backing him and funding it all to become world champion. Now, as we've all witnessed this season, we don't see Perez being world champion. And is this the first time that they've really felt that within the Perez and the Mexican camp, overall? And how are they going to get that back? You know, this is brutal, this world of Formula One. And I can't see it. I think the reality of, is Perez going to become world champion? In a Red Bull, he's got the car and he's not doing it, but he's in an era where Verstappen is part of, where Hamilton is part of. You know, at the end of the day, you've got to beat your competition. It's not your fault that you've got mega strong competition right now in multiple world champions. But you're always going to get that, aren't you? You know, he's just not quite stepped up. But
he's
been
number two. Yeah, a good number two.
He's a good number two. As a Brit, I want Hamilton. Of course, I want Hamilton to get second in the championship. But why does Hamilton need second in the championship? He doesn't need it. It's rubbish. He needs first or nothing. Excuse me. So, I'm cheering on Perez this weekend.
But to interject there with Hamilton, okay, yes, second is first loser, as I found out on the pub quiz the other night. And I'll tell you why. And I even argued the point. They did a picture round with cars, famous cars from the movies.
Oh, no.
And one of the pictures was a white Lotus Esprit that goes underwater.
Right, yes.
Right. So, and
ask
then
me the
obviously,
question. Come on.
Okay, so which film is that from?
The one that goes underwater, the Lotus Esprit, is The Spy Who Loved Me.
Exactly. Do you know what the answer was?
1977. Go on.
77. The answer was James Bond.
No! Stop it!
And I said, excuse me, there is no film called James Bond. All the others had film titles, and this was... I said, no, it's The Spy Who Loved Me. And they go, oh, no, it's okay, it's James Bond. I'm like, I argued it, and then they wouldn't allow it. I was like, this is ridiculous. So... yeah, I know. So I know what it's like to be second place like Lewis. Me and Lewis have got a lot in common.
I would not accept that, mate. I'm not happy with that for you, Joe.
I wasn't happy. I was fuming.
Oh man, is this the same pub quiz that you sent me a photo of a Formula One car sort of parting the ways down the?
No, that was something I spotted on Instagram, and I thought, oh, I wonder if you know what that is. So I took out the caption, and you were pretty good. I mean, come on. I mean, you missed the USA flag at the front, which was a biggie.
I got it up when I zoomed in afterwards. I went, oh.
But what a cool photo! In fact, here is the photo, and as you can see, if you get it right, and you can tell us in the comments where you think this was taken and who is in that car in the middle, and which year, then you'll be able to come onto the podcast and say your thing about Formula One. So competition time. Tell us about the photo, and then we'll get you onto a pub quiz.
I'm enjoying this. I think we need one of these every week, Joe. A little
a competition, and we need to have maybe structure as well. That's also good. That'd be fun. Coming back to Hamilton, obviously the big story was the disqualification, but the plank saga hasn't really gone away. I mean, Lewis has come out and said, well, you should test all the drivers because I'm sure a lot of them would have had the same thing.
Yeah. So the thing is, there's this thing at the race. You have all your stewards during the race running, but there's something called scrutineering that every level of motorsport has. So right now, my son is down at Clay Pigeon Raceway this morning, testing today, actually practicing. And but scrutineering, you have to take your car along. They do all the checks that they have to do, make sure everything's to regulation. Then every time you come into the pits from a session, you then have to sit there and all the stewards go around checking everybody's nose cones, checking everybody's tyres, just checking everything is to within the rules. So that's grassroots karting. Formula One, you're going to expect this to be absolutely 10, 15, 20 times better. However, what they do in Formula One scrutineering is they say we don't have time to check absolutely everything on every car after a race. And they're right, especially when everything's being packed down to get out of America and off to Mexico for the same week. So what they do is they randomly check certain things about the car. And it just randomly happened that they chose to check 4 cars with the plank ride height. And what they do is they measure this plank. They know what it's meant to be at the start of the race, and it wears away. And I think the problem actually stems right from FP1, because it was a sprint race weekend. They didn't have time to set their cars up. And we talked in the last podcast how this track can move up and down. And I think turn 11 has moved by 1.5 meters over the last 5 years. So I heard. Like can you imagine that?
Oh, because
going
of land subsistence.
Correct. And so they keep re-tarmacking it, but the actual the level of the land is 1.5 meters difference. Now, when we're in Formula One worlds, Joe, 1.5 meters is the difference between, not just the difference between coming first and last, it's huge. So when we're talking about ride heights on these Formula One cars, whether it's that gap or whatever it is, Red Bull were really conservative with their ride heights this weekend. And you can see it in photos that have been taken. But Ferrari and Mercedes, for sure now, were really on that tolerance line of getting every little bit out of it they could. And because they didn't have long enough to be able to practice and try things out, they just went for a feeling. And what Hamilton is saying is, well, if my car had an illegal ride height and therefore the plank wore away, and if the Ferrari had a legal ride height on Leclerc's car, the chances are that Russell's and Sainz's were exactly the same. And therefore, they were probably illegal as well. But because they weren't checked randomly, they've got away with it. And what Hamilton is saying is, look, they checked 4 cars, 2 of them were illegal. Well, that says to me, on average, we're 10 out of the 20 cars illegal. So we don't know about the McLaren in second place. We do know about the Red Bull, because they were really conservative, and that's why they were probably a little bit less competitive or ahead of the field than they have been in previous races. But I think Hamilton is right. If they find an irregularity at 50%, surely they've got to go and check some others,
Yeah. And I think another big issue about this is that, and we've seen this actually all season, and it's becoming more common, is that you get the podium, you have the interviews, 1, 2, and 3. Here are our champions for this week, and they do the whole thing. They do the media interviews. They're up in the box before they come out. They're watching the race, they're having a drink, they're having a chat, or not chatting, which is even funnier. They come out, they do the whole podium, national anthems, all the jazz, the champagne, everything. And then half an hour later, oh, no, you're not second. Oh, no, you didn't win. Oh, actually, no. I think, in a way, that either they need to do these checks before the podium somehow. So have another section which buys the FIA time to do their checks. I think you need to slot in something that will take 10 minutes. Maybe it's a song, maybe it's a performance, like a Super Bowl, thing. And because we're waiting for the podium, so that's fine. That the fans are flooding the track, so that's fine in most circuits. Let's have something there so they can just verify the results. All fine. And then you've got your podium with your 3, because they take the photos. That is the official photo for that race. here are your winners for the rest of eternity. How can they then say, oh, no, no, actually, you're off the podium, and then everyone's bumped up?
Well,
Do
Joe,
it before the podium.
it's so complex. It really is. And these cars are absolute, spaceships. And humans, when humans get involved in perfection, that's where the errors occur. I've got to
Yeah.
totally agree with you. You've got all that crowd. They've been there. Oh, he's off again. So you've got all that crowd out there.
It's the aircon
Um,
that kills me.
They've been there all day. They've been there all weekend. 10 minutes isn't going to make a difference. But then you've got all the TV channels screaming at you, get on with it, get on with it. We've got to air other stuff and so on. But do you know what?
They need to build that in, because
Joe.
if you took 10 minutes away from the start, from all the grid walk and stuff, or somewhere in that whole build up, shift it by 10, 15 minutes or 20 minutes or half an hour even. But you need to, I really hate when you have the podium, here are your winners. Oh, and then half an hour or a day later, or a couple of days later, oh no, you're disqualified because of that. Like, either give the podium immunity to say, well, they're the winners, so we don't check those, okay? Or have some time, get 10 FIA guys on there. It's the most organized sport. We've worked at Paddock Club. It's minute by minute timing. It's military timing. And, when you watch it, the clock strikes exactly the right time. It is done to perfection. Why can't the FIA do that as well? And have 10 guys, 12 guys checking 3 cars or whatever it is by random. They take a ball and they know what they're going to check. And as soon as the cars come in, you come into the special parc fermé for those 3 cars, and then you do your checks. And then if you're on the podium and there's a problem, you're disqualified, or there's docked time, then you calculate it, then you have your podium, because this is ridiculous. And so what they're going to do now when in 2 years' time we look back at the USA Grand Prix, we go, oh, there's a photo. Hamilton came second and thingy. Oh no, he didn't, because later it's a mess.
Yeah,
it's a mess.
I totally agree. It
makes me angry.
They're selling. I can tell, Joe. I like it though. They're selling tickets now. We talked about it again for Thursday of this weekend. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's 4 days. People have invested so much money, as whether you're buying the cheapest ticket or you're buying the corporate most expensive tickets, or you're even the backer of Perez or Stroll or whoever. There's so much money. Why can't we get the most important thing on the whole weekend right? And that's the result. So I think we're absolutely in agreement. And it is time. It is humans. It does, but, mate, it is a mess. And I think things will change, because that's the great thing about Formula One, is it does get discussed. It does get analysed, and it will improve.
It's about marginal improvements all the time. And it's a good lesson for us all. I kind of learned that from F1. We've been working there for about 6 years now, 8 years for me, with Abu Dhabi a couple of years before, Yaz. But it is about those marginal improvements. If you could just move that there, does that improve something? It's like anything. And I think it's a great lesson for us all. If you can marginally improve just a tiny little bit every day, put that cookie down and go for a walk. And if you, things like that, so it's like, I really love the sport for that. I just don't know, as you said, how they can keep getting this wrong with the podium. Either give the FIA more time or give them immunity.
Well, if there's
immunity probably won't work, because if someone cheats or there's something like that, then that's a problem. But now we're already on to Mexico, so who cares?
We are on,
really.
But if there's one person that can change things in Formula One, it's Lewis Hamilton. And when he speaks out, people do listen. Whether it's about the sport itself or bigger world problems. He has the voice, he has the platform, and he said this. Let's watch this space and see what evolves. But like you said, it's Mexico this weekend. We've got to look forward. We've got a normal weekend, with FP1 and FP2 happening later today. Qualifying tomorrow, and then the race on Sunday. And I've got to say, I'm a little bit relieved that it's back to normal. A little bit more boring. Is it because I'm the super fan rather,
You're
and
a
the
traditionalist.
traditionalist? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
There's something for me that says these guys, I want to see them get it right on Sunday. And if they're not given the time to get it right because of sprint racing and sprint shootouts and all this other stuff of sensationalizing entertainment, we're not seeing perfection. And we didn't see perfection last week because they
Mm,
didn't have enough time on the circuit to get it
mm,
right. So,
mm,
and I want to see them get it right, and that includes Perez. I don't want to see Hamilton disqualified off the podium. I don't want to see any of that. But things have to happen like this for things to change. So let's keep our fingers crossed. But I've got to say, I'm looking forward to seeing FP1 later today because we've got some of the rookies driving in there today, and one of which is one of my favourite rookies, Jack Doohan. And
yes. I
now,
don't know much about Jack Doohan. So
okay.
yeah, come on, fill us in.
So Jack Doohan is currently racing in Formula 2. So he was there last year as well. I got to meet him in Paddock Club in Spain, where he came up and did an interview. I got the exciting job of handing him his microphone. Yeah, I loved it, Joe. But, Jack Doohan, son of the famous world champion motorcyclist Mick Doohan from Australia. So another Australian driver. We've got Piastri, we've got Ricardo, and we've had Mark Webber.
Webber.
There's a lot of good people coming out of Australia. Long way to be away from that European bubble of motorsport. They all come over to the UK, and so Jack's going to be in the Alpine for FP1 because every team has an obligation to the FIA to run 2 FP1 sessions a season with their third driver. So we've seen my favourite one to say, Drugovic in the Aston
Mm.
Martin. We've seen that happen. We've got Jack Doohan in the Alpine this weekend, but we've got to see some others as well. Now I know some of the teams are leaving it right till the last minute, and I don't think any driver wants to give up any track time in Vegas. So I think we're going to see a few in Abu Dhabi,
Yeah.
but. But I think there's a few actually happening this weekend. So, but I've not got a list in front of me. It's just Jack Doohan I've noticed, and I heard a little interview with him that was fascinating. He's desperate for an F1 drive now. He feels he's doing everything he possibly can to earn it, but the opportunities for new drivers seem to be slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. And when we look at the driver lineup for next season, other than seeing Ricardo come in,
Mm.
we've seen Piastri come in this season, but there's no change at all unless there's going to be a shock somewhere that we've discussed at Red Bull possibly. But,
Mm.
Liam Lawson being the third driver for Red Bull and AlphaTauri now no longer qualifies to do an FP1 session because he's not a rookie anymore.
Really?
Yep.
So he's
because
now in no man's land.
correct.
He's a Mick Schumacher now.
He is. So, so these third drivers that have raced an F1 car in a race, then no longer become eligible. But it means it creates opportunities for more new people that we haven't seen before. So,
Yeah. Well,
and I want to see them come through.
to add to that, I have quickly cheated and looked up on the FIA website.
Good man.
And we do have some more rookies. Theo Porcher for
Yep.
Alfa Romeo. He will be making his.
So Porsche's
debut.
the current leader of the F2 Championship, and this is the
Mhm.
poison chalice as well, because once you have won the F2 Championship, and the same with the F1 Academy, in fact, as Marta Garcia did last weekend, you cannot race in that series the following year. You're out.
So either you get a seat somewhere, or you're looking at Formula E.
Or
You're
what?
looking at Extreme
Indy,
E. You're looking at
yeah,
Indy.
IndyCar, yeah. So,
Yeah.
and if you don't get a drive in there, you are maybe this third driver at F1 where they just shadow the actual drivers. So Jack Doohan was talking about shadowing Ocon and Gasly for
Mm.
Alpine, and he's just there for all the driver briefings. He's there in the garage. He's there as part of the team radio, so he understands every step. So that, for example, like Liam Lawson did in Zandvoort to replace Ricardo, he's ready to get in that car at any time.
Well,
And
someone who's been dreaming as well, and been dreaming about this opportunity, is Frederick Vesti, who will be making his FP1 session debut with Mercedes this weekend as well.
Yep.
So Vesti, yeah, I mean, it's amazing. He's come from Prima Racing.
Yes.
And he's stood in for he's going to stand in for George Russell in the W14. But yeah, he's been a great one. We've got Jack Doohan, as you said, in Alpine. We also have Oliver Behrman for Haas.
British driver. So
Ollie Behrman, we call him Ollie then.
Yep, that's it.
These are all really young guys. And then we also have Isaac Hajar for AlphaTauri. So we do have a few coming through. Maybe some of these teams who know they're not going to win, obviously. They're not going to be top 3, top 5. Look, they need to get them out there. They can't just leave it for Abu Dhabi. I think, there's also that part that the drivers want to have one last flourish. But yeah, we'll see some rookies on the circuit, which will be good. No longer rookies. Go to the other end. And Max Verstappen, obviously, he's won the World Championship already. Lots of debate about his teammate for future years. And we did hear a story, actually, that Lando Norris was indeed approached.
Yes.
And I think they made him an offer to join Max at Red Bull. They get on, they're good friends. But Norris did decline. And probably the reason is because Lando's the number 1 driver at McLaren, pretty much. So what would happen if he went to Red Bull? Well, would he happy being a number 2? I don't think so. He wants to be a number 1 driver. And I think he definitely has potential in him to win a world championship, if not just be on podiums a lot. So he's shown that. I don't think he'd be happy with number 2. I don't think Max would be happy with someone vying for the title with him, because Perez tried that and hasn't really worked out.
Well, I think the idea of having 2 number 1 drivers, the Prost Senna days in McLaren, is mouth-watering for any F1 fan, And as we saw at the start of this season, Verstappen, Perez, they were the first 5 races. And we were just like, this is what we want to see. We know that's not come to fruition. But for Norris to turn down a Red Bull drive, firstly, what a strong position to be in. And what confidence he has in what McLaren are doing. They are building that car around Norris. Piastri is driving that car as a rookie, the socks off it, basically. He is pushing Norris to another level. I think what they are building and what Zach Brown is doing now at McLaren is the first time really since the Ron Dennis days that we're really seeing this with that team. I think he is building something that can really take on Red Bull and Mercedes. And we need to see more teams doing that. We need to see 5, 6 teams all competing for not just podiums, but the win. We're seeing Mercedes, Ferrari, and McLaren and Aston Martin beating Perez in a Red Bull. So we're in that little sort of stage that's in between. But Norris, what a brilliant position to be in. And he's gone up in my estimation, actually, for turning it down. Now we've just got to make sure that those car developments at McLaren are absolutely doing what he believes is going to happen. I can't wait to watch it.
We can't wait to watch this race and see McLaren and see everyone going for this. We want to see how Sergio gets on as well. It's his home race at the Mexican Grand Prix. So make sure you like and subscribe. We're going to do a review after the race. Shout outs. Have you got a shout out at all, Darren?
No, not today, Joe. It's a case of we were doing these fast and furious at the moment. I was talking as a mate of mine I was playing football with last night, Max. He said to the guys, "Have you listened to Darren's podcast?" And not knowing you, Joe, of course he doesn't know you, but
sure.
And I did mention you as we were chatting. Not yet. We were out on the football pitch last night, and everybody's going, "What? What?" But you know what? They were talking about it, and that's Joe. That's what we want. People talking about it. So
what's the football team? It was Petersfield United or something. Who was it?
Well, my boys play for Petersfield Town Juniors and working up to the big team when they get older. But this is it's a lads kick around really that I do on a Thursday night. I've done it for 25 years. Good bunch of guys. So let's give them a shout out, and I'll find out next week if any of them have listened to the end.
That's true, but we do need a name for this team. So let's ask
good.
worldwide if you have a name for this team. If it doesn't have one, have you got one?
Well, we play up at a school called Bedales, where Roger Taylor sent his kids to school. So it's a bit of a celebrity school nearby. Beautiful AstroTurf pitch. So Bedales School, but it's just mates.
Bedale's dads. Bedale's dads.
That'll do. Well, my
There you
kids
go.
aren't there, but I am a dad, and it is at Bedale, so I'll take it.
Okay, so the BDDs, the BDs. So check out the BDs. They'll be at Wembley for the FA Cup Vars final.
Oh yeah,
Well, I'll give a shout out. Actually, a friend of mine. It was funny. He sent me a photo. He was sitting on his couch, and here's the photo. And it's he was just incredulous because he went onto YouTube on the TV, and there came up Racehouse, and the episode bang straight front and center. So big shout out to Andy Faulkner, who's been a lifelong friend, and he follows the podcast. And he's well into it, so maybe we'll get him on one day. But he watches Formula One. He'll be watching the race as well. And we did watch a race together in the summer. Can't remember which one. Maybe a European one, must have been. But yeah, so Andy Faulkner. But his nickname is Sanjurita Margarita Masada Miyagi Taylor Smith.
What?
For
Come on,
long,
say it again. Say it again.
Crazy teenage reasons. Sanjurita Margarita Masada Miyagi Taylor Smith is his full nickname, but he's had more nicknames than anyone else. So China is also a good one because he's very delicate when it comes to the food that he eats. In fact, we went to Rome once on holiday, and he actually got sick from the nutrients in the food because it was all fresh. But I won't embarrass him anymore. But he's he's been a lifelong friend, and he's a lifelong fan of Racehouse. So big up to Andy.
Well, Andy, hi. Keep listening, buddy.
So he's not far from you as well. He lives down the road from you.
Does he?
Yes. So that's it from us for this episode. Please like and subscribe. Share it with your mates. We will be watching the Mexican Grand Prix. It's 2 p.m. local, 9 p.m. UK, and midnight.
I think it's 8 p.m., isn't it, UK? I've got
That's
it as
GMT, but you're still on BST.
Oh, okay. Yeah, good point.
Oh,
yes.
no, but when did the
Is there
clocks change?
I think it might be this weekend, Saturday night. So
It is this
could be
weekend.
right? Yeah.
So it will be 8. Yes.
Right. I'm not.
Don't miss the start, Darren.
No, but can you imagine?
It's like
right.
lap
Okay, let's
56.
guys, everybody double check their timings with those clock changes.
Double check your time if you're in the UK and Europe. But it's 2 p.m. local in Mexico. So I know that. I think it is going to be back to GMT. So it's 8 p.m. and midnight in Dubai. So yeah, hopefully if I can stay up, I'll stay up and watch it.
Come on,
it's my
Joe.
turn
You
to
can do it.
Get the
You
red
can
eye. But that's it from Racehouse with me, Joe Lee.
Me, Darren Reeves.
See you next time.
Take care.